Well, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us on our second Small Business Ambassador Network COVID-19 webinar. Today, we have a really great lineup for you all and a special guest from the Small Business Development Centers, Keith Yagorsky. And Keith, besides his role working for SBDCs, is also an eBay seller and has been an eBay trainer. So I think he can particularly answer your questions and be in tune for what your daily business life is like. Just want to remind everyone that eBay is a purpose-driven company, and the only reason we exist is to empower people and to create economic opportunity. And never before has this been more important, and really never before are we, the GR team, more proud to work for this great company and on behalf of our seller community. It really is a joy and a privilege to work on your behalf to governments all over the world. You probably saw in the news a new CEO was named of eBay yesterday, Jamie Iannone. Some of you, if you've been with eBay a long time, may remember he worked in product and the buyer experience team and really was a culture warrior at eBay. So we're very excited. I said to somebody earlier today that this is really the best of both worlds. This is both an external candidate, someone who's been, has not been at eBay for 12 years, but began his career and his leadership career at eBay and was with us for 8 years prior. So, he understands us and understands our purpose and will keep to that while still bringing his experience with Walmart and others, Barnes and Noble, to eBay and make it stronger than ever before. So we're very excited about Jamie coming, and he starts April the 27th. So I'll turn it over to Christiana.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. Hope you guys are doing well. So before we kind of get into the information part of our webinar, we just want to go over some simple Zoom webinar tools that were going to be present during our webinar. Especially if you weren't able to join us for the first one, this will kind of probably be something new. So during our webinar, we're going to have a series of poll questions that we're going to ask you based on some information that we really would like to get from you all regarding feedback and other things. You won't necessarily have to do anything. I'll make the polls go live, and as soon as I make a poll go live, it'll pop up right on your screen. You simply just click on whatever answer you would like to choose, and as soon as you click and make your selection, the poll will then disappear. That means that your selection has been successfully recorded and you don't have to do anything else. Again, it'll pop up automatically, and as soon as you make your selection, it'll just go away. We have about 3 of those for you today, so just a little FYI. Another function that I want to make known for you all is the Q&A function. So as promised, at the end of this webinar is going to be our Q&A portion, where we'll allow you guys to answer questions directly to our team and to Keith. With that being said, we are not verbally able to hear you. So if you do want to ask a question, please use the Q&A function. I've outlined it on the screen, but you should see it. It's going to be at the bottom of your screen. There's going to be a bunch of tool options. It's going to be the one that has the little text chat bubbles, and it'll say Q&A on it. If you are not joining this webinar via your computer and you're calling in, please feel free to go ahead and email me. It's chmeyers, MEYERS, @ebay.com with your questions. I'll be monitoring my emails so that we can make sure that, again, if you're calling in, you'll still have a chance to participate in our live Q&A section. But again, it's located at the bottom of your screen and it's labeled Q&A. So again, before we get started, we just want to make another informational plug for you guys to make sure that you're constantly visiting our eBay Main Street COVID-19 resource page. We are constantly updating it with government resources, both on the state and the federal side. It's a really good and organized tool, hopefully that you guys find useful to help you navigate a lot of these resources as legislation is being passed and as things are continuously changing. So please make sure you're continuously looking at our COVID-19 page off of our Main Street page, and feel free to share this page within your eBay community as well. With that being said, I'm going to go ahead and kick it off back to Matt so we can get started with our webinar.
Hey everyone, Matt Jensen here with the Federal Government Relations team in Washington, D.C. One of eBay's lobbyists. I've interacted or chatted with many of you. Just want to say thank you so much for taking the time out of your very, very busy days to spend time with us today and walk through some of the questions that you have. So a little bit about us. As you know, from the government relations side of things, we advocate on behalf of you to Congress and to local and state officials. And so as part of today's webinar, it'll be very interactive, a lot of Q&A, a lot of feedback. That's very helpful for us. It helps us to understand how or on what we should be advocating for with Congress. So we'll go through that with the polling that Christiana is going to do, and then also with Q&A later on. So thank you so much for being on with us, and look forward to working with you today.
Awesome. Thanks, Matt. So yeah, again, just to reiterate, thanks again for joining us. And so we're going to launch our first poll question, which you should see just popping up on your screens. Our first question that we have for you guys is, have you applied for a Paycheck Protection Program or a PPP loan? And your options are yes, you have and you've received your money. Yes, you have and you're waiting for your money. No, you would like to, but you don't know how, or no, you do not qualify. No, the process is too confusing, and no, not interested. So we'll leave this up for a little bit, give you guys ample amount of time to vote before we go ahead and move on to our next poll question. Again, it should pop up on your screen, and after you made your selection, it should automatically close out until we launch our next poll. So I'll just give you guys a couple more seconds to go ahead and make your choices before we choose to move on. Okay, it seems like mostly everyone has voted, so we'll go ahead and we'll move on to the next question. So our next poll question, which you should see popping up on your screens now, is, have you applied for assistance through SBA's Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program, or the EIDL? And the answer choices we have for you are pretty similar to the question before, but again, it's yes, you've received your money, yes, but you're waiting to receive your money. No, you would like to, but you don't know how. No, because you do not qualify. No, because the options are kind of just too confusing and you get frustrated. Or no, you're not interested in participating in this program. So we'll go ahead and give you guys a couple of seconds to vote. Seems like almost everyone has voted. Go ahead and move on to the next poll that we have for you guys. So the last poll that we're really interested in getting feedback from you guys is, which of the following eBay COVID-19 actions has been most helpful to you and your business? And differing from the first two polls, we want to have you guys go ahead and be able to mark all that apply. So whether it's adjustments to seller performance ratings, temporary deferment of seller fees, increased seller team engagement, eBay charitable match contributions, our eBay GR resources, such as this webinar, or anything else that you can think of. We're really interested in your feedback and making sure that we're getting you the information out the best way possible. Again, we are giving you guys the options to vote for more than one thing, whatever applies to what you feel has been most helpful to you and your business. So we'll give you guys a couple more minutes to go ahead and vote. And as a follow-up, if you weren't here for the first one, we will make these slides in this webinar available to you all, and it will include a breakdown of the polls. Okay, and it seems like most everyone has voted, so we'll go ahead and end that last poll. And thank you guys for contributing and allowing us to get your feedback on some things. So with that being said, I'm gonna go ahead and kick it over to Ashley to give a little bit of a federal update for you guys. So Ashley.
Thanks, Christiana. Hi, everybody. Ashley Schillingsburg here from the Federal Government Relations team. Pleasure talking with all of you again. Just wanted to take a couple of minutes and refresh on some of the federal programs that have been made available. I'm going to keep this pretty high level because we're so fortunate to have Keith from the Small Business Development Centers here on the line, who is an expert in all of these programs and can answer your questions a little bit more granularly. So yeah, I'll just run through this really quickly. Christiana, if you can move to the next slide. So as we discussed on the last call, Congress passed the Kerrs Act, which included some new programs through the Small Business Administration to support small businesses throughout the COVID crisis. The first is the Paycheck Protection Program, which we just had the polling question on, which is a program designed to help keep people on payroll. Another is an emergency disaster loan advance. There's an SBA debt relief program for sellers who have an existing loan through the Small Business Administration, and there are also bridge loans available. Just to go through a little bit, we talked about this on the last webinar, but who can apply for one of the Paycheck Protection Program loans? Those companies that have 500 or fewer employees, and that includes nonprofit, self-employed individuals, and sole proprietors, which I know many of you have asked that question previously. Applying would be through either your financial institution, or there are a number of fintech companies that have been approved by the Small Business Administration to administer these loans, including Intuit, Square, and PayPal. We'll be happy to help try to gather some resources for some of those if that's of interest to any sellers. There's been a lot of coverage recently in the press about interest in these programs and whether or not they're going to run out of funding. A majority of the funding has already been allocated. Congress is currently considering some options to fund these programs a little bit more. It's all very much in flux, but we will keep you updated as that develops. And then I just wanted to remind you all of the resources that we do have available on the eBay Main Street COVID website that we've developed, and we're continuing to update that with information from CDC, Department of Labor on workspace issues, IRS on tax issues, and any other federal government agencies and resources that become available. And just want to remind you all before we move into the state programs, as you have questions, please feel free to use the Q&A function at the bottom of the screen. We can start developing some questions to go through at the end of the webinar. Thank you.
Thanks, Ashley. This is Shayna Brown. I'm a manager of state government relations. I work for states in the West, and I have a counterpart, Kevin Callahan, who's also on the line, who manages government relations for states in the East. Our work complements the work of Matt and Ashley as we track state and local issues on the ground. And as you can see, that many states are taking action with stay-at-home and shelter-in-place policies. We have 43 that are active right now. And those are also supplemented by local actions a lot of the time at the county level. So we are trying to make sure that we track everything on the ground, and because all of these stay-at-home orders can differ from state to state and jurisdiction to jurisdiction. So we have put together a really great resource list of state actions and resources that are available at ebaymainstreet.com, the link that was provided a couple of times throughout the slides. And this is constantly being updated. So as new programs are available or new resources are being launched on the ground in states, we are making sure that this continues to be populated. So I would recommend that you check that often. And we are really trying to make sure at the state level that the activities of our sellers are considered essential. So we want to make sure that you can stay up and running during this crisis, and so that you can continue to sell on the site. And we are actively engaged on that at a statewide and at a federal level. Next slide, please. Here are just a few examples of actions that are taken by governors. Many times these will benefit residents, but they will also can translate into benefits for small businesses. So we wanted to highlight a few. We know we have a lot of sellers from California and New York, so there are some benefits from Governor Gavin Newsom. He is ordered a halt of evictions for tenants that cannot pay rent, and there are similar emergency regulations in New York for foreclosure and credit card late fees. And then when we take a look at the state and local resources, a lot of this authority comes down to the agencies and departments in the state. So many times this is an economic development authority or economic development agency that is rolling out programs and standing them up as they have guidance or funding available from the federal government. So we are wanting to make sure that all of the states that you live in, that we are tracking those resources for you, and so that you can access them in real time, again, on our website. As you'll see, they vary state by state, but there are programs available, and we're highlighting a couple here, one from New Jersey for direct low-cost financing for small businesses to cover operating costs and expenses. There's also a North Dakota example where there is a regional appointee based on where you live in that state. So every state's taking a different approach, but we are trying to make sure that we have up-to-date information for every state. And if you need any more assistance, please do not hesitate to reach out to the state GR team.
All right, perfect. Thanks so much, everyone. We're now going to turn the time over to Keith, who's going to walk us through exactly what SBDCs are, and he will be able to answer probably all the questions that you all have. So we'll turn the time over to Keith.
Partnering with the America's Small Business Development Centers. It's been a partnership that's been going on for years. I was an eBay education specialist at one time. It was a program that eBay ran where they would train us to actually teach how to sell on eBay. And part of that, keeping that certification, was that you had to maintain a certain level of selling. So I would have to sell, and I can't remember because it was a while ago, but I want to say it was something like I had to sell 30 items a month or something of that nature. So I became very familiar with eBay. I did a lot of training, and when we were practicing for this call, I was joking with Christiana and Ashley, and I said I found my niche was at that point was helping elderly women clean their houses out, and at that point, that was when eBay first exploded onto the scene, and everybody was using eBay to do that. So it was kind of neat. I'd hold a seminar, and I'd be the only male, and there'd be a lot of women that were like my grandmother's age, and they're all wanting to learn how to sell all their stuff. So it was a neat time. But as that program actually went away, but I thought it was a really great program, at the time that they were doing it. So anyway, working with the Small Business Development Centers, I'm here 26 years at the University of Scranton in Pennsylvania. And, our up until a month ago, our, tagline was to help businesses start, grow, and prosper. And in the last month, it's been help businesses survive. And so we've done like a complete 180 in how we do things. And we've been working around the clock to try to help people navigate these assistance packages that are available. For those of you who don't know about the SBDCs, they're, for instance, our centers in Pennsylvania, we are funded in part by the Small Business Administration. And I'd like to say that we're the arm of the SBA that actually sits down and meets with clients and business owners. And then we're also funded in part by the state of Pennsylvania through the Pennsylvania Department of Community and Economic Development. And then also the University of Scranton, our host institution, helps fund us. We're one of 17 small business development centers in the state of Pennsylvania, our office, and then we're part of the National America's SBDC network, which is why I'm here today. And we have over 1,000 centers nationwide. So if you go to America's SBDC, and I have .com, but it's .org, actually, it's probably .com and .org, but you can go in there, put in your zip code, and you'll find an SBDC that's near you, and somebody that can walk you through some of the things we're going to talk about today. Okay, so the difference between the SBDCs and the SBA, and again, we're like I said, the easiest way to describe us is that we are the branch of the SBA that actually sits down and meets with clients. So what we do is we do a lot of, right now, we're doing a lot of webinars. We're doing them daily in our state. SBA is offering them as well on these emergency loan and grant programs that are available. We have business survival skills and starting a new business. When this thing finally clears up, there's going to be a lot of work involved in recovery and helping people get restarted. So we're actually looking forward to that part, as I'm sure everybody is. Our services are free and confidential. We offer one-on-one assistance. We would sit down with a client one-on-one. We've moved everything to, as everyone has done, basically using Zoom and FaceTime and any other platform we can to meet clients one-on-one. We assist the client. We don't loan money, but we assist the client in applying for financing and putting together a business plan, putting together financial projections, putting together all the supporting documentation that a lender would need in order to get financing. We assist business owners with financial management and making sure that they're able to pay off the loans that they're applying for, and work with them on cash flow strategies. My background is marketing, so I do a lot of internet marketing, just general marketing plans, unwinding the business, starting a business. And then also, we also realize that we're not the only resource available. So a lot of times, people need help in selling to the federal or state governments. We have connections to procurement centers. We work with women's business centers, SCORE. They're all agencies, your local chambers of commerce, to help. There's a lot of resources out there for business owners, and you just have to, don't be afraid to ask for help. So our services are free, they're confidential, and we work to try to, if we can't find the answer, we're going to try to find a resource to help you do that. So what we don't do, we do not provide funding of any kind. We don't loan money. We don't have grants, or we don't make investments in businesses, but we do help people, again, try to find the resources that are available to them, and put them in front of the right people to kind of, cut to the chase, make it a little easier on them. We don't really have any say on whether or not you'll get financing, but what we do is, again, try to paint the best picture that you can put in front of a lender in order for you to get financing. So where do we differ from the SBA? The SBA is the one, they're the vehicle that the federal government is using right now to offer the emergency loan and forgivable loan programs, such as the Paycheck Protection Program and the Economic Injury Disaster Loan, as well as the Express Bridge Loan, which is kind of a new thing. And this is the beauty of this. All of this stuff has happened in a really short time frame for a government agency to be able to try to put all this together in a matter of weeks has been an amazing thing that they're actually, people are starting to actually see the money. And while the people who are waiting for it, it's not fast enough, in terms of what the government has been able to do here is pretty amazing. So the financing programs that traditionally SBA offers, and traditionally SBA doesn't actually lend you money. They are a guarantee lender. So you go through your local bank that's an affiliated SBA lender, and then SBA comes in as your co-signer and they guarantee the loan so that if you default, SBA pays the bank back. So that makes it a little more attractive to a lender, knowing that they have an SBA backing behind them. And the programs they have a 7A program, which is their traditional small business lending program. They have the 504 program, where that's an actual direct loan program that SBA loans money. They have an Express Community Advantage loans. They support microloan programs. They have export loan programs, an export working capital loan, and an international trade loan. And they also manage the 8A business development program and the Hub Zone program to help socially and economically disadvantaged people or entities obtain government contracts. They continually do webinars on accessing capital, government contracting. They have seminars on marketing, business planning. They do a lot of some of the legwork for us, and we try to again partner with them where we can. The SBA does not provide individual assistance in applying for financing. Again, that's usually through your local bank or an SBA approved lender. And they don't provide individual business and management advice. That's what the SBDCs and SCORE pretty much do. So I guess whoever's running the slides, if you want to go to the next one. The biggest questions we've had over the last month are the differences between the Paycheck Protection Program and the Economic Injury Disaster Loan. The Economic Injury Disaster Loan has been the vehicle that SBA has used for years to help with natural disasters, floods, hurricanes, the fires in California. So in my experience, I've worked with Hurricane Irene, Tropical Storm Lee, Hurricane Sandy, which have hit in our areas in the northeast part of the United States and in our corner of northeast Pennsylvania. So we had been familiar with using these economic injury disaster loans. When Congress passed the Kerrs Act on March 27th, they came out with a new program called the Paycheck Protection Program. And this is, again, a brand new program that the SBA and the banks have developed in a matter of weeks. And the whole concept of this plan is to try to keep people employed until this pandemic is over and they can get back to work, and that the employers won't lose their employees. So the Paycheck Protection Program benefits the employee. The Economic Injury Disaster Loan benefits the business owner. And that's the realm you have to think of it in terms of. So the Paycheck Protection Program, in short, covers your payroll, your employee salary, your mortgage interest, rent and utilities, and interest on any debt that you had before February 15th of this year. If 75% of that money is used on your payroll and employee salaries, mortgage interest, rent, and utilities, that part of the loan can be forgiven. The way they determine that loan is they take your average monthly payroll over the last 12 months and they times that by 2.5%. There's a fixed rate of a 1% financing on that. It's a 2-year loan. The first 6 months is deferred. So you have 18 months to pay that 2-year loan. Again, if 75% of the loan amount is used on your payroll costs, and the rest of it, the other 25% could be used on, the mortgage, utilities, your rent, that loan will be forgiven. So in turn, it turns into a grant. So that loan program is directly through your local bank or the bank that you deal with, or a certified lender. The problem is this program is very, very popular. So the slide earlier showed there was $350 billion allocated to this. 267 billion, I think was the number you used, has already been allocated. So it's going fast. There's already banks who have said we've met our quotas, and that's leaving some people to try to scramble to try to find another lender. And the banks are so busy trying to take care of their valued customers that it's hard for them to say, oh yeah, we're going to bring on a new customer right now when we're having a hard time even handling the ones that we currently have. So that's the Paycheck Protection Program. The next one is again, the traditional economic injury disaster loan. And that's to cover your business costs, payroll, any kind of debts, your accounts payable, all the bills that you have in the business that can't be paid because all of a sudden you're impacted by this disaster. This one, in this loan, you're able to borrow up to $2 million, although I'm hearing discrepancies on that right now, but traditionally it's up to $2 million. There's a 3.75 fixed rate on that. If you're a nonprofit business, it's 2.75. You can finance this out to 30 years. And now the new component that they added after the fact, that after people had already started applying for this, is they realized a lot of people were applying, and in order to get this, you needed to have a minimum credit score of 600. A lot of people were being denied. So there's still a whole pile of people under that 600 credit limit that weren't getting anything. So they came up with the emergency grant that was available, and it's up to $10,000, and it's $1,000 per employee, up to 10 employees, and 10,000 is the max you could collect on that. So they were saying to us, now whether or not this has changed, I don't know, but even people who were denied the loan still have access to getting up to the $10,000 in the grants. I'm going to go to the next slide. So people are saying, how do I apply for these? If you want to apply electronically, the application, SBA's website is covid19relief.sba.gov, and that will take you to both applications. There are paper loan applications that could be downloaded from sba.gov/disaster. And then also there's an SBA customer service line, and you can call that number 800-859-2955. And then also their email address is, excuse me, disaster customer service at sba.gov. Excuse me. What else do we have? I think that covers all my stuff, or is there more? Okay, so this is my contact information. I'm happy to try to assist where I can. If I can't point you in the right direction, I'll try to, again, find a resource that's available close to you, wherever you're located, that can assist. But again, that's kind of an overview of the programs. And, thank you for allowing me to take part in this.
Great. Thank you so much, Keith. Really appreciate it. We're now in the question and answer section of the webinar. For those that are on Zoom, would draw your attention to the Q&A button at the bottom. If you do have a question, please submit it there. If you're on the phone, please send an email to Christina@chmyers@ebay.com. So we've gotten quite a few good questions in. Thank you all who have submitted. Keith, a couple of these are going to be for you, if that's okay.
Yep.
So first question, this is from an individual who has already applied for an EIDL loan. They're getting emails from SBA saying that it's in process, but they don't know how to check the status other than these kind of blank format emails. Is there?
First of all, people need to be very, very careful, because there's a lot of scams already starting where you're getting phone calls saying that, we've processed your application. We need to know your bank account number, and all those scams that always take place. SBA is not calling you, so don't ever worry about that. The typical EIDL loan, the EIDL loan, is 18 to 21 days before you're going to hear anything. The amount of volume that they are dealing with right now, I'm assuming it's actually going to be longer. Although, like I said, as of the last 2 days, I'm starting to see businesses that are starting to say, "Hey, we're getting answers now. We're starting to see the money." So it is starting to trickle in. The email that I gave on the previous slide, the SBA disaster assistance at sba.gov, is and the phone number that goes with that is the place that I would call for any general information to get more information on your application. If you applied for an EIDL number, that you would have received a confirmation number of your application, so you're going to need to have that. What happened was, there was so many people hitting this, a lot of people were submitting their applications, and in the middle of it, it was breaking down, and they weren't sure if the application went through or not. We were being told by SBA to tell people to reapply if they weren't sure, if they didn't have that confirmation number. The issue, though, I'm seeing online, sometimes they run a credit report on you, and if you were in the process and you resubmit it again, you might get your credit report run again, and that hurts your credit score. So you have to, I think the best thing to do is to, if you didn't receive the number, but you think your application went through, is to try to contact them on the phone line or the email to see if you can get through and get some clarification.
Perfect. Thanks, Keith. One other question for you. Speaking of EIDLs again, can you talk about eligibility? Someone had heard that it was just for sole proprietors. Can LLCs apply as well?
Yes, it's not just for sole proprietors. It's for any business that is deemed a small business according to SBA rules, and that's businesses under 500 employees. So corporations, LLCs, sub-S corporations, partnerships, and sole proprietors are all eligible.
Perfect. Thank you. We'll switch over. A question for Ashley on the federal side. We'll get back to you, Keith. We have a couple more for you, but
okay.
We'll break it up. Ashley, you talked about money from Congress to SBA. Can you talk through that process a little bit on what that could look like?
Sure. We are definitely in uncharted territory in Congress right now. They are not in session. They are not scheduled to come back into session until May 4th on both the House and Senate side. So in order to pass anything before then, there has to be complete agreement, unanimous consent, so that they don't have to do what are known as roll call votes, where pretty much every member of Congress has to show up and vote in person. So finding agreement on something in Congress is, as everyone knows, usually very difficult. Now is no exception. So the Republicans and Democrats are negotiating whether to simply add more funding to the programs that have already been authorized through the Kerrs Act, or to potentially add also more funding for hospitals and state and local resources, and put additional conditions on some of the small business programs that have been authorized. That is playing out as we speak. So I don't have a very clear update or timeline on that, but the conversations are ongoing. So we are continuing to push that these programs be funded, and that's one of the reasons why it's so helpful to get feedback from everyone on the call on how these programs are working for you, because it's an important part of how we're communicating with Congress and with the administration and the White House and all the agencies involved about how these programs can be improved and how fully they should be funded. But right now, additional funding for this program is very up in the air.
Perfect. Thanks, Ashley. Keith, so as part of that, where there's this little bit of uncertainty, if someone has not applied for a PPP or an EIDL, would you suggest that they still apply even though there may be funding issues on the back end?
I would apply because, as Ashley just said, from what our understanding is, and I watched President Trump's press conference the other day where he said he was asking Congress for another $250 billion to put into this because of the demand for it. And a lot of the loans are, you know, smaller loans. So there's people that are only applying for a small sole proprietor, you know, 5,000, 6,000. So, you know, $350 billion goes a long way when there's a lot of applications like that. So yes, I would tell them to apply. They do not have to take the loans if they are approved.
Perfect. Another question. So this came up in response to our poll. So quite a few respondents to the polls have applied and been approved for a PPP or an EIDL, but they're just waiting for their money. You had mentioned average return time for an EIDL is about 3 weeks. For those that are waiting for a PPP, how long should they expect?
Well, those are supposed to be turned around in 10 days. You know, it's funny because I was on a conference call right before this with a lender who works in a small bank, and he laughed when he said 10 days. You know, they have to have people come in and sign papers and whatever. And, you know, they have literally, even small branches have thousands of applicants for this. So to be able to sit down with people and, you know, right now, because of social distancing and all that, it's a slow process. So once they have the paperwork, they're supposed to be able to, I think it's 5 days to distribute the funds. So the funds would be in your account. So it's, you know, it will be quicker than the EIDL loan, but it's still, you know, because of the mass volume of everybody hitting at once, it's a little slower than it normally is supposed to be on paper.
Perfect. All right, we got a question in through email. I'm just going to read this verbatim. This is for you, Keith. So this is in regards to PPP loans. It says, I do not traditionally have payroll. I use my profit to either pay off business debt, including to me and my business partner, or buy new inventory. Can I still apply for PPP? If so, what data should I use when they ask for payroll figures?
That's a question you'd probably best be asking your lender. I'm not sure. There's a lot of those, you know, little businesses that have those little nuances, and they do certain things, file for certain ways for tax purposes. So your best bet, your lenders are the one making that determination. So I would talk with them, because typically it's to cover payroll and to keep your employees. So I don't even know if that, you know, if my opinion, if that's the right loan for you. You know, maybe the EIDL loan is a better choice.
Perfect. And to that point, can you speak a little bit about the relationships with financial institutions, with the lenders? We've heard some rumors that you have to have a pre-existing lending relationship in order to be approved. We've heard of other situations where some of the fintechs or new lenders don't require a pre-existing. What are you seeing?
Well, the local banks that in our area are, like I said, are only dealing with their existing customers. They're not taking new customers. I had one lender tell me that it's so out of tune for them, because typically, you know, they're constantly in competition with each other, trying to fight to get customers. And they said, this just isn't the time to do that. So even though, you know, Bank A says, I'm sorry, we can't do any more payroll protection program loans, so we're leaving you hanging. You know, they're not coming in to swoop up that client because they can't even deal with their own clients. Now, SBA is working really hard to approve other lenders to become part of this program. So there will be secondary lenders that are, you know, we call them secondary lenders who aren't banks, or, you know, but there are going to be other lenders out there that are going to be trying to fill this void. So, you know, there's a potential there. The other things we didn't mention here is the other part of this Kerrs Act is there's an SBA debt relief component to it. So anybody who has a current SBA loan they're going to get 6 months of their principal, interest, and any fees waived, not are forgiven. The SBA is going to come in and make those payments. So that's a huge, a huge part of this that we haven't even talked about. So anybody who has an current SBA loan is going to want to reach out to their lender to get it, because some of our lenders didn't even know that that was part of this. They were just saying, well, we're offering a 3-month deferment on payments. And that's not the case. The debt relief part of it is SBA will come in and actually make those payments.
Perfect.
And the fourth part, which we haven't talked about, is unemployment. The Kerrs Act offers a $600 a week unemployment for a business owner. So, and the first time ever that sole proprietors or self-employed people can apply for that. So that's also a big part of it. And it's also causing a big problem in people who want to lay off their employees, or do I keep them, apply for the payroll protection program and keep them on when they're actually going to make more money collecting unemployment. So it's kind of caused a rift there, but that's above our pay grade to try to figure out all that stuff.
Perfect. Keith, we'll give you a quick break and we'll shift back over to Ashley. So Ashley, this is sort of a macroeconomic question.
Sorry, my little compliment.
So when we're talking about Congress passing more money and giving it to SBA in order to fill these programs, what is the conversation as far as what that is doing to the national debt? Is this money just printed? Are there members that are concerned or interested in what this is doing to our overall economy?
That's a great question, and a lot of people are asking it right now. These are pretty unprecedented times, and so whereas congressional spending is usually a very divisive issue in Congress, there has been a lot of agreement that now is kind of the time to pull out all the stops. And so you saw the record over $2 trillion Kerrs Act pass almost unanimously in Congress. Now, some of the funding through that program is through these guaranteed loans. And given the fact that these loans some of them do carry interest, these are not just, checks that the government is writing, but there are a lot of people concerned about the debt that the country is going to be taking on, and the impact that will have on other spending priorities, on future generations, on inflation and deflation. So I do not have all of those answers, but a lot of people are talking about and asking those questions, and I think you will see more divisiveness on additional spending packages related to the national debt. So it's definitely top of mind for a lot of members of Congress.
Perfect. Thanks. Back to Keith. So we got another one in through email. I'm going to read it. It says, I have not put in for PPP because my store is closed in California, and I only have 8 weeks to get staff back and working full time. Can you address how store closures impact when people can apply for these programs? I've been told to wait and get unemployment insurance instead.
Okay, here, my advice to you is, because the funds are going to run out in this program, is to apply. You could always not take the money. If you're going to wait till the end and think, oh, I'll collect unemployment and then take it, you may miss out on it. So I would apply. The other part of it is, I have people who are saying, well, I'm going to wait a month before I accept the money, and that's not how it's going to work. And then I'm going to put my employees back on the payroll. Once that money is released into your account, you need to immediately bring your employees back.
Immediately. What is immediately?
Immediately. Like, not a week, not a month. Immediately, they need to be back on your payroll.
Perfect. And I think with Keith's comment, I'll just add a disclaimer from the eBay side of things. We're not providing legal advice here or tax advice, we're just directing you to resources, and Keith is a great resource that we have answering your questions here. So, with that, Keith, can you walk us through, obviously the current environment is very different than for an SBDC than it was pre-COVID, right? If someone would like to engage or work with an SBDC, you gave us the websites and the URLs and the phone numbers to call. Can you briefly walk us through what an initial consultation looks like? And two, the majority of our folks have not used SBA as a resource previously. This is their first introduction to working with SBA. And given all the complications, they might not have the best, they might not enjoy this experience. So maybe you could speak to, during air quotes, normal times, what is it like working with SBA?
Well, again, typically you don't work with SBA very much. It's, you work with an SBDC, a SCORE representative, a women's business center. And those experiences are, for the most part, they're 95% positive. We survey our clients, and everybody's pretty happy with the information that we provide. Your dealings with SBA typically are when you go to a bank to apply for a loan. And if SBA says, man, you don't really have the collateral that you need, or you really don't have a lot of experience in this type of business, we think we're going to ask for an SBA guarantee on this loan. And that's where SBA then would come in and guarantee, you pay a 2.5 or 2 3/4 point higher interest rate on your loan, but you get a guarantee that if you default, SBA would pay the lender back. And without that guarantee, you may have not gotten the financing. So that's kind of where the traditional person has a relationship with SBA. It's never that they actually see someone or deal with someone from SBA. They do deal with their SBDCs. A traditional experience with your SBDC, you call us, we set up an initial meeting. And again, we can meet you face to face, or we typically, right now we're meeting everybody via video conference, but we go through your business. We look at where we identify maybe some holes in either your business plan, or if you're in business. I like to use the example, there's a lot of people who know how to, they're mechanics who know how to fix cars, but they don't know how to market themselves. They don't know how to keep their books. And that's where the SBDC steps in, and we kind of educate them on that process. So, that's when we work with existing businesses, that's what we do. So I have clients that I've been working with since 1997. They'll call up every time they have any kind of issue, they'll call and they'll, kick ideas down the road. And, we work with them to diversify their businesses, to maybe to do international trade, or to sell to the government, or to get online. eBay has the, Christiana and Ashley were telling me about the program now where you're waiving some seller fees and you're allowing storefronts, educating somebody that here's an option for you now that your store is shut down, but you can still sell your product. And there's going to be a lot of people now, especially retail stores, who have a lot of inventory that they got to get rid of. So this is a perfect, opportunity for them to get educated on that process. And that's where the SBDC can come in and kind of teach them how to do some of that.
Perfect. Thanks, Keith. And thanks for the plug. eBay's up and running program is that with trying to help facilitate new sellers onto the platform. So that was recently announced. So thank you all very much for the questions. We will have some good summaries to send around as part of the slide deck and the poll questions, but I'll turn it back over to Sharon.
Yeah, thanks so much, Matt and Keith. That was really great. I actually learned a lot, so really appreciate it as well. Just wanted to give a plug for our next webinar. We're going to focus this one on the Postal Service, and we will have a guest who can speak to this, and it's going to be on April 28th at 4 o'clock. And the Postal Service is really more important than ever. And eBay GR is doing a lot to support the Postal Service in their continual operations. So please join us on April 28th at 4 o'clock Eastern for that one. And again, thank you so much. Thank you for all that you do. We really, of course, appreciate your business. And if there's any questions about anything, whether it's this topic or others, please don't forget, you can always email government_relations@ebay.com. And we'll be happy to help you with really anything that you need during these challenging times. So thank you, and hope everyone has a nice evening.